answering a question from Instagram user at Pete O'Mirney. He says, what is the ultimate goal / purpose of human existence and how to achieve it? Well, I think we all agree that's a great question to ask, right? It's a question we all have asked. It depends on what perspective you're asking that question from. The answer is going to vary a bit, but since you asked from the human perspective, what is the goal of human existence, I'll give you the simple answer, which is to find happiness. The goal / purpose of human existence is quite obviously to find happiness. If you think about the fact that everyone at every given moment, every action they take is taken for the ultimate reason of finding happiness, then that's a pretty remarkable revelation to have, isn't it? You realize that we are actually almost slaves to happiness. We can't be anything else. We can't ever truly desire something else. Nobody ever truly desires pain and suffering. They suffer and they experience pain because they think it's going to lead them to happiness somehow. And of course it doesn't. And so we are sort of stuck. We have almost no option but to desire happiness. And that's not because we are stuck in that sense, but because happiness is actually what we are. The happiness that you seek is actually your true essential nature, and that is why you're seeking it. The reason you seek happiness like it's everything to you is because it is. It is everything to you. But the problem is that we get sort of hypnotized into believing that we can find this happiness in objects, in the world. And that's just simply not possible to do, right? Because you are the happiness that you seek. It is ultimately coming from inside of you. And so when you feel happiness ever, for any reason, it wasn't the object or the experience or anything else that gave you happiness. It was something that happened to allow a release of the happiness that you are. So for example, if you want, this is the easiest example, the classic red Ferrari, it's your dream car, it's all you think about, and you spend years saving and saving and saving for it, and you're just, you're trying to get through this part of your life so you can get that Ferrari you want. And you finally have struggled and saved, and you buy the Ferrari. Well, what happens when you get the Ferrari? You feel incredibly happy, right? You feel amazing. This is like cloud 9. And you drive that thing and you sit in it, and oh, this is everything I dreamed of, and you're so happy. But the happiness does not stay, right? It leaves very quickly, and the euphoria you once felt dies off. And that's because the mind had you convinced that the happiness you wanted was in that Ferrari, and so it made you chase it with all the tenacity you could, and you finally got it. And when you got the Ferrari, that mechanism the ego was using on you collapsed, right? Because you finally achieved it. So you got the thing the ego had convinced you needed to be happy. And so you feel that happiness shining from within you for a while until the ego starts to work up a new thing. It goes, you need a house to go with it, right? And then the hamster wheel never ends. You're just always wanting and chasing the next thing. So happiness is sort of like this eternal journey that never arrives at the destination. And the way to circumvent this cycle, of course, is to get off of the hamster wheel. And in Buddhism and Hinduism, they teach to get rid of your desires, get rid of your attachments, get rid of any opinions or beliefs you have that you need anything at all to be happy. And then when you can actually do that and dissolve those ego attachments and identities and things like that, you actually feel a tremendous sense of happiness. And this is what people are chasing when they're trying to self-realize themselves. They're trying to get to this state of being blissed out and just being happy. So you could say that the purpose of human existence is to find happiness, but that's not the ultimate truth of it, because from the level up, from consciousness perspective, consciousness has a different purpose, and consciousness's purpose is to experience itself or to express itself. That's what consciousness is trying to do with this manifest universe. And so consciousness, in a sense, doesn't want to just be blissed out, right? It doesn't want to just self-realize awakening and just kind of sit in a monastery forever. Now, some people may find that to be their joy and do that, and that's an absolutely valid point of view, and that's a great expression. But I sort of achieved this state of recognizing my true self and just being extremely blissful all the time and just resting and I did it. I've transcended the ego. I feel so happy and complete. I'm good to go. But this period didn't last very long for me because I found in myself a deep hunger, I didn't even want it to be there really. I wanted to stay in this sort of blissed out state. But there was this force in me that was this kind of burning hunger to expand even more. And it wanted to explore more. And so I started to realize that I should follow this inner voice and start to explore my passions more and start to explore deeper levels of awareness, deeper expansions of consciousness. And through that, I found tremendous joy, tremendous enlightenment there, tremendous evolution from the ego, which I thought was already achieved, but I found myself transcending even more things I didn't realize were still there. And that's because I ultimately believe that, like the Buddha said, you suffer because you desire, but I actually believe the ultimate truth is you suffer because you lack, and you desire something that you believe you're lacking. But there are also other types of desires which are pure, which are desires, you could say, that are just wanting to express themselves out of joy, out of the passion itself is why it wants to do it. And these are what I call pure desires. Because ego desires always express themselves in the form of an attachment. I want to identify with this thing. I have to give it my juice. And that's what creates the suffering, because now you're vulnerable. But when you step out of that and you just want to experience something for the pure joy of it, the pure passion of it, then you transcend ego to an even greater extent, because in this place, when you're this passionate and expressive and joyful about your true self, the ego has no room to entice you at all with anything. I mean, there's nothing it can say that's going to seduce you anymore. When you're just in the state of peace, but you're not expanding, you're not accelerating, and you're just sort of feeling bliss, I found that I could still be tempted by my ego. Not that I even would give in to it, but I was tempted to give in to it quite often. And this sort of almost feels like it's work or effort. And so when I transcended that level of awareness and stepped into a passionate expression of the divine, I didn't even get tempted anymore. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than what I'm doing right now. This expansion, this acceleration is the greatest joy I've ever known. And so I realized through that it's because consciousness wants to expand. Consciousness is not wanting to incarnate itself just to realize its consciousness and be blissed out, but it actually wants to continue exploring and expanding the human consciousness and seeing what levels of awareness it can evolve into. And I'm going to explain all of this in a separate episode about sort of the 7 layers of consciousness, 7 densities of consciousness from the popular teaching of the Law of One. But for right now, just know that consciousness sort of, in a sense, almost has a mission in trying to experience or to know itself. It's trying to get to certain levels of awareness. And this trying is, again, out of a joy. It's fun. It's an exciting thing for consciousness. It's not like, oh, I have to do this. But so you could say that the meaning of life is for consciousness to experience itself. And that's a valid answer as well. And that expansion, that experience is up for grabs. It's up for interpretation. It's however you wish to expand, because anything you do is consciousness doing it, is consciousness knowing a part of itself. So you can't make any mistakes in that sense. Any point of view you wish to adopt is equally valid from its perspective. But we as humans have this drive to pursue happiness, because the drive to pursue happiness is what keeps us evolving and expanding our consciousness, because we get to certain levels and we eventually aren't satisfied anymore. That sort of and then what thing pops up. And this is actually a good thing, because if there was an inherent meaning or purpose designed into reality, it was placed into the manifest universe, and we had to figure it out and do what it was, well, that would take away our free agency. That wouldn't be true will if God created the world and, like some religions believe, the purpose for this whole universe is to convert everyone to this religion. That's why I made it. Well, that actually strips us of free will, because now we have to do what this divine creator wants us to do, or else we face eternal punishment. So that strips free agency completely, which is ironically the reason why religious people say that God punishes you, is because he can't take away your free agency. But anything he does to put purpose in reality is taking away your free agency. So consciousness doesn't do that. It doesn't say this is your one purpose and meaning. It's more like an art form. We see the way that divine intelligence works best in artistic expression of any kind. When you see somebody dancing, You don't ask them, what's the goal/purpose of you dancing? Because they can't really answer you, right? Because there's many reasons why they're dancing. Part of it is a joyful expression of who they are. Part of it is because they love learning new dance moves. Part of it is because it's just fun. It's a way to express themselves in motion. There's not just one reason they're doing it, and that's the way that reality is there is no one reason you can narrow things down to. And from an ultimate perspective, life has no meaning. Creation has no purpose. That's because in the same way that the dance is its own purpose, life is its own purpose. Reality is its own meaning. Because when a dancer is dancing, what is your goal/purpose of dancing? The answer is dancing, right? There's many different reasons why they're doing it, but the ultimate answer is, I'm showing you the meaning. And so the whole universe is showing us this. It is just a divine dance. It is music being played, and you don't ask the musician, what's the purpose of your music? You don't ask the surfer, what is the goal of surfing? Because they'll just look at you and laugh, because the surfing is the goal, right? It's an expression, it is a dance. And so you can say that you are dancing the dance of life from this perspective. But actually that's not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is beyond that, because these questions of what is the purpose, what is the meaning that we ask so often, they're just sort of really good indicators that we're kind of dead to reality, right? In the same way that the person asking the musician what the goal is of music is kind of dead to the reality of music if he's asking that. We don't ask those questions when we're happy, when we're flourishing, when we're accelerating, when we're passionate, chasing our dreams, doing the things we love, really living life to the fullest. We never ask, what's the meaning of life? Because life is its meaning. And so if you're asking what's the meaning of my life, I don't know, you tell me. Do you see any meaning in your life? Is there anybody that you feel tremendous love for? Would you give your life for someone that you love? Do you ever feel so alive? Are you ever moved to tears? Do you ever have moments of just incredible joy? On and on and on. And you're going to say, yeah, all the time. Boom, that's your meaning. That's your purpose. Life is just dancing. God is just dancing. And sometimes we think that we are the dancers, right? And from a perspective, that's true. From the human perspective, I have free will to do what I want and express God in my way. But the ultimate truth is that there is just one being. And so life is actually dancing you. You are not dancing life. So God is the dancer, and you are the dance.